Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sit and See Live. I've got to come up with a better intro for these things. I think if somebody was watching these one by one, the introduction would be boring as heck. In any case, I'm Dr. Jared Jones. I specialized in ancient systems of meditation, the cognitive science of meditation, and Buddhist philosophy. This is my background. I've also been meditating for about 20 years, for those of you who don't know me and stumble upon this later. And this hour, or sometimes 4 hours, depending on the day, is an opportunity for us to get together. You can ask questions about meditation, and we can do some practice together. And all the practices that I do are aimed at city-dwelling lay people who want to do meditation in ordinary life. So again, if you find this later, that's what this is all about. And there's plenty of these videos in the series. Hello, Cleric. Hello. Good to see you. I've got two people in the stream. I wonder who the other person is today. Just checking with you guys. How is the sound coming through, and how is the visual coming through? I've been playing a lot with my camera to try to make the quality a little bit better, and playing with the mic to try to make it less popping and cracking and less sound of me breathing and so forth. you probably don't need to hear all that. Sit and see what happens next. Hey, John. Welcome. Good day. Good day. Okay. Well, we have now passed the time, I think, where I'm just waiting for the usuals to turn up. So if you catch this stream later, again, just you can sort of jump forward until there's a big gap in the audio. That's where we're doing practice, and then catch the instructions from there. Okay, so let's start and just sort of getting in the mode for meditation by asking any questions that may have come up in the last 24 hours. If you've had any experiences you'd like to share that you have questions about, or just things that have happened, or whatever, now is the time. Yeah. Yeah. One of my teachers said, what you want to learn to do is do about 70 or 80% of what you're capable of. If you do 70 or 80% of what you're capable of, rather than pushing it to 100 or 110% or whatever, then day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, you'll find that 80% used to be here, and now it's here, and then it's here, so that you're always hungry to come back for more. Of course, we go through periods where we want to do retreat, where we want to do intensive practice, and we push really, really hard to try to break through whatever level we're at currently. But from day to day, as normal people living in the world, you have to really you have to moderate what you're doing so that you don't get overwhelmed. Because the biggest enemy you're going to have, or one of the biggest enemies at least you're going to have in terms of trying to train your mind, is that you just get tired doing it. Yeah, you and me both. Cleric, you and me both. We're both the type of people that do something either 400% or 10% or less, you know? It's very hard to just do that 70, 80% thing. But there's a great deal of wisdom there. I can tell you from personal experience, just doing, for example, 5 minutes a day when that's your level of capability and doing it really, really seriously for those 5 minutes will grow as time goes on into 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then from time to time, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of practice. So 80%. Okay, let's do some practice. Since we're about 5 minutes in, I think all the regulars are here. Let's start with intensive breath meditation, 5 minutes. You already know the instructions. Place your mind on the breath with great intensity. Count your breath from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. Don't imagine, don't analyze, don't visualize, except for the numbers that you're visualizing. And begin. Questions? A really good and really interesting question came in the last day. By the way, if you guys ask me questions in private through Facebook Messenger or what have you, unless I have your permission, I won't ever identify who made certain comments or questions or so forth. But of course, if it's helpful to other people, I may, in a general way, say this happened or that happened, just for clarity. I'm always going to protect your privacy. But an interesting comment came in that this person was having difficulty understanding how and why we opened the gustatory sense gate, the taste. And it was an interesting point and an interesting question. This person said, I thought that what we were going to do would be to, in essence, open up the taste of bitterness, sweetness, sourness, and so forth. By way of analogy, that would be like thinking, if I want to open the visual field, let's say, I would need to see every color that exists at the same time. Right? That would be the analogy. But when you're opening a sense gate, what you're learning to do is to make that sense fully available and ready for whatever occurs next. Because it's not stuck on some aspect of what just occurred. So normally what happens is something happens, well, before we go there. So we are opening the gustatory sense gate in the same way that we've opened the other sense gates, by opening the gate to the furthest point to the front, furthest point to the back, to the left, to the right, the highest point and the lowest point, which maybe aren't that far apart, but there is going to be a high point and a low point. The reason for this is that eventually you open all 5 external sense gates at the same time. And that's what you train in. You don't train in simply opening 1 or 2 or 3 of the gates. You open all 5 of the sense gates at the same time, and you train making all 5 of them at the same time non-reactive. And I say non-reactive, but in reality, those consciousnesses themselves are actually non-reactive already. What they do is detect what is occurring, generate an image of some kind, and then you have an experience of that image. So that's all they're doing. It's your mind, actually, that is grabbing onto certain parts of those things and then directing your eyes, for example, to look at the thing that you've seen. So it's your mind that gets pulled out of itself by being distracted by what's occurred with the senses. So ultimately, what we're doing is resting in the nature of the 5 external consciousnesses. And those consciousnesses don't care what appears there. Unfortunately, your body, for example, your tactile sense, is just as happy to generate an experience of pain as it is to generate an experience of pleasure or bliss. Your tactile sense doesn't discriminate. So you don't have to see everything or hear everything or taste everything in terms of every object in order to open those gates. You simply make them open and available and ready to have the experience of whatever occurs next, by not grabbing onto what just occurred. So now, to go back, normally what our mind does is the vision sees an object, right? It sees this object, and then the mind, which is behind the vision, says, "Oh, that's interesting. Go after that. Go look at that some more." And the vision goes and focuses on this object, and then the mind is spinning and coming up with stuff as the vision is sort of stuck on this object. And while it's doing that and spinning, the other five senses are sort of graying down a little bit. They're getting a little bit less bandwidth, and more of your bandwidth, your mental bandwidth, is on this particular object to take it in. Except that we do that all day long, completely out of control, and our mind is being constantly pulled in five directions, but mostly it's being pulled into the body, into vision, and into hearing. From time to time, when we're eating things and drinking things and smelling and so forth, it's getting dragged into the other two, but that's much less of the time. And so since the mind is doing this, and then in addition to that, in addition to chasing the five senses, the sixth sense, the mind, is also exaggerating qualities that are appearing in those senses through mixing the sensory data with concepts and what we would call klesha, disturbing emotion, disturbing mental states. Since it's doing that, you're spending your whole life chasing stuff that doesn't actually matter. It's really tragic. It's absolutely tragic. Because if you think about a romantic relationship you had or a really good friendship you had that fell apart, for example, in the beginning, you over-exaggerated how incredible it was. In the middle, you got bored. And at the end, you feel nothing but dislike and aversion. And then at some point, there's indifference. And we do this with all sorts of objects, not just, when I say objects, I mean things that appear to our mind. That person was something that appeared to your mind, right? But it could be a new watch, a new video game, a new television, a new device, a new job, a new city. We just chase, or run. That's it. And we do that our whole life, and then we die. I mean, it's absolutely tragic. So training to make your senses less reactive is not only important for meditation, but it's important for having a meaningful life, so that you're not just chasing exaggerated perceptions around and living your entire life based upon exaggerations of perception. Hey, Sam. So for some of you, you've been meditating a little while, but only meditating using techniques that are really geared for lay people for a short time. And so, I was talking with one of my gurus last night and was talking to him about teaching and what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it. And he reminded me of something quite important, which is that you can't make big promises to people, It's going to take some work. Even with the right techniques, it's going to take some work. But the techniques I teach, I do my very best to get rid of so many things that don't work for most people so that you can get the absolute maximum benefits out of the time you're putting in. Because I think that'll actually help you stay motivated. If you can see a little bit of progress coming, and you can see that as you put in more work, you don't just spin your wheels, that there seems to be something incremental going on over the course of weeks and months and years, then you'll stay motivated to do the training. And if you stay motivated to do the training and eventually add on some study so that you know what you're doing and why and everything else, then you make progress. And slowly, as a general principle, things improve. There will still be hard times, but things improve. Okay. Well, Sam, welcome. Let's see who else is here. I see a few other people dropping in. Please do, if you have questions and you're new, pop questions into the chat or comments about meditation. In this stream, as the regulars know, we do meditation practice, and then in between, I answer questions basically. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. And in the next few minutes, we'll do another session. The chat's so quiet now. I scare everyone away with the everything is horrible and we're all going to die. And it's going to be work. That's not what anyone wants to hear. It's so funny though. This is what I was talking with my teacher about last night was, if you tell people the hard stuff that they don't want to hear, then they leave. And so you have to have this balance between telling people what they need to hear and telling people what they can handle so they can keep making progress, Anyways, let's see. I was meditating and I realized the state is way better than the normal walking state. Hold on. While I was meditating, I realized that the state is way better than the normal waking state. What is that? Just a thought. Yeah, Cleric, I agree with you. I don't talk about this too much, but my first teacher was a very hardcore Okinawan martial arts black belt who learned Zen from a 2-time All Japan full contact karate champion. So his attitude was, this is life or death. This is absolutely a life or death endeavor on steroids. It is actually an infinite rebirth of life and death, stakes endeavor. But again, he was a great and accomplished yogi. He was the real deal, and he could do things that defied my understanding, and sometimes seemed to defy physics. Just to give you one very brief example, at one time, he had to do retreat, and his teacher wasn't going to allow him to take the next part of the teaching for some tantric practice that he was doing at the time until he had done the retreat for that practice. But the retreat his teacher had given him was 6 months of practice. And it was 6 months of 16-hour days, 4 4-hour sessions a day. And he did it. He took the time off. Somehow him and his wife sorted it out financially, and he stayed at home, but he did the full retreat. And the Gendon Tripa, who's the head of the Geluk lineage, invited him, although he wasn't able to attend, at least he got the invitation, invited him to attend private teachings for the highest levels of tantric training in the Geluk tradition. So this sort of thing it's unusual, let's say, to completely understate the case. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. It really is what it is. And so this is the kind of person that he was. And the reason he was that way is because he felt the stakes were so high. This is what we were talking about yesterday in terms of the 3 scopes of person. Because, for example, the person who just wants to have sort of a nice life by doing a bit of meditation is not going to have the motivation to do 6 months of retreat continuously. Why would they? The stakes for them are a lot lower. They just want to have a nicer mind and be kind of nicer to people and be able to manage things a little better. And so the idea of sacrificing a whole hell of a lot in terms of building your career, your income, blah, 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 maintaining your household, your relationships for 6 months to do some practice, you know, the stakes need to be pretty high in your mind, and your worldview needs to be set up in such a way that you can maintain that commitment. Okay. So, anyways, I say all of that, but then let me sort of wind it all back for us normal folks. I say all of this, but then I also must say he was also of the opinion that you get to that kind of capability not by forcing yourself to do 6 months of retreat or something, or forcing yourself to believe stuff that you can't possibly believe. You get there by continuing to do the practice, continuing to do your studies, and slowly, 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 stuff happens. You meet people, you see things, ideas click, you find some evidence for something you didn't know existed, and then you go, wow, okay, this part that sounded totally nuts 3 years ago actually is now my personal experience. Well, you know, that probably means the rest of this too, if I keep going, is going to be exactly the way they described it in the text. And as you have those experiences, you gain more and more confidence that the roadmaps and descriptions that are being laid out in the system are actually accurate. They sound, I think, in the beginning, quite almost mythological, but as you train more and more and the years go by, these things start to happen to you in your personal experience and the experience of people in your community. And so it goes from being an academic endeavor, let's say, to something quite personal and experiential. Okay. So Sam, whose name is Bell in the chat, said they realize that the state of meditation is better than the normal waking state. Yeah, that's 100% true. The state of mind of meditation is vastly superior to your ordinary waking state. Vastly superior. It's so superior, in fact, that the great texts on meditation say, this is not a problem for us because we're not there, but the great texts on meditation say you can get addicted to just training in concentration, because concentration itself, when you can do it, is so exempt, it so outshines any other pleasure you could get that there's no comparison. And you will, once you have tasted a bit of concentration for real, there may be periods where you can't keep up the practice for one reason or another, or life is weighing you down or what have you, but you will never be able to put it out of your mind. Addiction is the wrong word, but since we don't have a better one, it is perhaps the most addictive substance on the planet. There's nothing like it. It makes your entire body feel, sublime is an excellent word for it. It makes your mind feel sublime, flexible, capable, bright. Like your whole nervous, like someone went through with like a little airbrush and airbrushed your entire nervous system and just made it. Okay. Yeah, so Sam, it's not scary really. Yeah, in terms of miracles, I don't like to use the word miracles, but I mean it's actually fairly common, relatively speaking, right, in my community to, I mean, almost everyone I know in my community that's spent time around great yogis has at least one story where that yogi did something that defied the laws of physics, you know, as we understand them. I'm of the opinion, actually, that these extraordinary feats done by great meditators are natural. They're not supernatural. I think we just don't understand about we don't understand enough about what's going on in nature. Because these are part of nature, and these capabilities are part of what is natural if you train your mind and you gain control over the various elements in your body and so forth. This is just what can be done. And then, of course, the great yogis will say, don't get distracted by all that stuff, because calling them parlor tricks is maybe a bit too dismissive, because they're not actually tricks. They're like great capabilities by accomplished practitioners. But at the same time, they have limited functionality if you're just chasing around the next sort of special power that you can do. So yeah, you have to balance all of these factors, you know. On the one hand, they're extraordinary, but on the other hand, they are a distraction if you're just chasing after being able to do those things. On the one hand, they can be very helpful for helping other people, but on the other, they can give you a huge ego, and then you're not going to help anybody. There's a funny story in the Pali Canon where the Buddha met someone who had trained, I think, for 12 years in a. I'm assuming there's certain types of practices that still exist like this, but it was a practice where you would generate so much heat in the body that you could breathe a fireball out of your mouth. And so this person had trained for 12 years in these techniques so that they could blow fire out of their mouth. And the Buddha said, "That's it? You know, you put in all this work for 12 long years, and that's all you can do? I mean, sure, it's a great trick to like show somebody else that there's something beyond the ordinary physical stuff, perhaps, but if that's the only benefit you've gained from 12 years of training, when you're still fully wrapped up in unbelievable suffering, that's probably too high a price to pay for being able to shoot a fireball." Hey, Nat. Okay, let me just read the chat quickly. Sublime concentration. Yeah, sublime concentration. In Genlam Rinpoche's text, Cleric, he will say at some point, I think he calls it pliancy. Pliancy. There's a condition where once you've attained full calm abiding, the mental and physical dysfunction that makes you get tired like a normal person goes away. And then you can meditate as long as you want. You can meditate for 2 months if you want, without moving, without drinking, without sleeping, like Lama Zopa. So Sam, the problem with being addicted to concentration is that it's a dead-end path. In this lifetime, basically you'll become completely unhelpful to other people. Again, we are nowhere near this, so do your training. And if you like concentration, great. You know, if you get to the point where it's so good that you want to do it all the time, fantastic. But be aware that there are further steps after you've gained concentration. Concentration is like a really sharp knife. And if you just leave the knife in the holster without using it to cut all of your problems, then it's just a great looking knife. It's a blissful, incredible, wonderful knife that you never use to do the work, that you built the knife to do the work, right? It's terrible phrasing. But I think you understand what I mean. That's my issue with tricks like that. Fireballs are stable mind. Well, I think to do practices, for example, where you raise the core temperature of your body, I think these types of practices exist in the Taoist tradition, in the Buddhist tantras. I mean, I'm sure they're in the Hindu tantras as well. These practices that raise the core temperature of the body can trigger very powerful states of mind that can be useful for training in other things, but they can also completely fry your nervous system. So they are reserved for people who already are a bit more mature in terms of their spiritual training. And then, once again, if you don't use the very subtle minds that are triggered by those things to do other things in terms of your spiritual practice, then the states that you've generated while they will change you for the rest of your life, don't actually accomplish the spiritual aims that, for example, Buddhism is set up to accomplish. So once again, it's sort of it's one of these things like if you get halfway up the mountain, the view is going to be absolutely astonishing, but there's another half of a mountain to climb, if that makes sense. And when you get 70% of the way up the mountain, the view is going to be even more incredible because you're 2 more miles or 3 more miles up the mountain or whatever the case may be. Absolutely incredible. But at every stage, there's still further to go until you're at the very peak. So if you stop where you are and then probably start falling back down the mountain because you're just, or turn into an ice cube because you're standing on the side of this thing, then that's not good. Suffering versus meditator. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, yes. So, yes, the 10th level, actually, of the 9 levels. So, as with so many other Buddhist things, numbers are very important, but the count is not always what you think. So there are 9 stages for attaining calm abiding, but calm abiding itself is the result, which is a 10th thing, right? So there are 9 steps, and then you take the 10th step. So you place the mind, then you get a little bit of concentration, then your mind is mostly stable with a little bit of fluctuating, then your mind can stay on the object, but it starts to get sleepy or dull, and then you remove the dullness, and there's some other odds and ends there, but then once the dullness is gone, you start to be able to see that the mind has very subtle movements that you didn't notice before. Subtle excitement, where no thoughts are forming, but a thought is trying to form. And then you have another problem after that subtle movement is gone, then there's just a lack of the absolutely crystal clear, stunningly bright lucidity that is full-blown concentration. And that just the lack of that is called subtle laxity or subtle dullness. So that subtle dullness has to be removed. And then once you have full-on concentration with all these faults removed, then you spend quite a while in perfect concentration. But doing it makes you tired, so it takes effort. So it's single-pointed with effort. Then through doing that for a while, just like anything else, just like working out or whatever, then you attain single-pointed without effort, where you can sit in a single-pointed concentrated state. It doesn't take effort to remain in the state, but that's not yet calm abiding. It becomes calm abiding when you gain mental and physical pliancy, which is the ability to then sit, for example, for a month or 2 months without needing to move or eat or drink or sleep. And the sign that this has occurred, without actually having to sit for that period of time, the sign that it's occurred is there's an explosion of unbelievable bliss that fills both your body and your mind, and it removes what they call mental and physical dysfunction. And so your body becomes really, really easy to do things that need to be done with your body, and your body, it's much harder to make it tired and so forth. And same thing with your mind. Your mind becomes incredibly flexible and easy to use. And then once you've gained this, to go back to Bell's question, Sam's question, once you've gained this, now you have this incredibly sharp knife, this incredibly powerful, bright, lucid, stable mind that's unbiased, that you can turn towards the various elements of training in the path, like loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and things like selflessness and impermanence, so that you can actually uproot all of these problems and sufferings that have plagued you since beginningless time, or at least since last Tuesday, Plagued you since you started attending my live streams. Plagued you since you started this life at a minimum. Probably, if you look at the evidence, has plagued you a lot longer than that. Okay, let me do a quick scan of the chat, and then we'll do a body scan. And I think we'll call it a night after a body scan. Right. Yes, that sharp knife is what you use to do Vipassana. That's exactly right. Concentration is this extremely sharp knife, and Vipassana means you're using it to cut up and dissect all of these issues in reality so that you can rewire your entire cognitive system, because you have cognitive errors in your cognitive system. And using this, maybe a knife isn't the best analogy, but using this scalpel, you're going to excise and remove these cognitive errors. You see? And then once you've done that, the negative karma, the delusional emotions, the delusional mental states, those also dissolve, because they depend upon the fundamental ignorance. They depend upon this fundamental cognitive error that you have, where you see things as existing in and of themselves with their own identities, their own properties, and so forth. Okay, should we do some more practice? Oh, I'm a little beat up today. Okay, so find a good posture. Bring your mind inside the body. Place the mind in the. We're gonna do a fairly detailed one. Just warning you. Place the mind inside the left big toe. Second toe. Third. Fourth. Pinky. The ball of the foot. Arch. The top of the foot. The heel. Ankle. Divide your calf into 4 pieces. First piece, second, third, fourth, and your knee. Divide your thigh into 4 pieces. First piece, second, third, fourth, and into your hip joint. Move to your right foot, right big toe. Second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe, ball of the foot, arch of the foot, top of the foot, heel. Into the ankle. Divide the calf into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Into the knee. Divide the thigh into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. In at the hip. Put the mind in the front of the pelvis. Put the mind into the left side of the back of the pelvis, including the buttock. Put the mind into the right side of the back of the pelvis, including the buttock. Put the mind into the sacrum. And then collect all of that awareness into the tailbone. Move the awareness forward to the anus. To the perineum. From the perineum area, really take your time looking at each part, moving forward from the perineum into each part, one by one, dividing the sexual organ into as many pieces as you can. And then when you finish that, just rest at the tip of the sexual organ. Bring the awareness back now, finding your way to the lower abdomen or the front of the waist. The back of the abdomen. Bring your awareness to the front of the diaphragm belt or the upper abdomen. Now the back of the diaphragm belt. Bring the mind to the front of the chest. And the back of the chest. Top of your left shoulder. Front. outside, back, and armpit. Into the left bicep. Elbow. Forearm. Wrist. The palm. The back of the palm. For each finger, I'd like you to go through this pattern. Each finger, including your thumb, has 3 joints and 3 bones, or digits. So for your thumb, find the first joint, first digit, second joint, second digit, third joint, third digit. Now I'd like you to do the same pattern, but I'm not going to say it over and over. Do your pointer finger. Your middle finger. Your ring finger. And your pinky. Bring your awareness now from the pinky all the way over to the top of the right shoulder. The front. The outside. And the back. Into the armpit. Bicep. Elbow. Forearm. The wrist. Palm. The back of the palm. And as before, first joint of the thumb, first digit, second joint, second digit, third joint, third digit. Do the same for your pointer finger. Middle finger. ring finger. Pinky. Now bring your awareness to the bottom third of your neck. The middle third of the neck. And the upper third of the neck. Slide your awareness from there to the back of your scalp. The left side of your scalp. The right side of your scalp. Your right ear on the outside. Inside your right ear. Left ear on the outside. Inside your left ear. Forehead. Left eyebrow. Left eye. Right eyebrow. And right eye. Left cheek. Right cheek. Your nose. Inside your left nostril. Inside your right nostril. Just below your nose, the upper lip area, not your lips yet. And then your chin. the skin on the inside of the mouth. Oh, sorry, no. Your lips. Now the skin on the inside of your mouth. The teeth. Roof of your mouth. Below the tongue. The tongue. And follow the tongue to the throat. Now bring your awareness from the throat up to the top of the head, to the top of your scalp. For those of you who would like to take a break or end the session, you can at this time do that. Otherwise, if you're still feeling pretty good, let's go straight from here into a meditation on consciousness. To transition from here to a meditation on consciousness, turn your attention towards mental content. And just allow your mind to be like a mirror. Don't make any decisions. Don't make any choices. Don't form the intent to do anything besides remain like a mirror. Observe the content of your mind. Okay. Yeah, it's understandable. One thing that happens if you simply place the mind with calm, mirror like awareness in some part of the body is that part of the body will start releasing naturally. And if it doesn't release, then at least the distractingness, yeah, how distracting the sensations are will become less. But if you sit around and do this sort of thing to try to make yourself comfortable, then the distractions become more and the body stays uncomfortable. So if you need to adjust the body, for example, my right shoulder is quite bad. So when I place the mind in the shoulder or in the neck, for example, because I have a lot of tension in my neck, I think it's soft and hard to hear. I can bring the mic a little closer. I'm just not yelling like I normally do. So for your neck, for example, let's say that the tension and pain there is so much that it's distracting you from meditation. You can place your mind in that upper triangle. So you can't see, obviously, but sorry, the lower triangle. So on the back side, this lower triangle, and then also, if this was my back, right, there's a triangle that comes like this. So there are these two triangles that are connected like this, one coming off the neck like this, and then there's another one coming down the back in the middle between your scapula. And sort of in the middle of that, if you place your mind there where the neck and the spine connect, there's a really big bone. If you place your hand back here, you can feel there's a large sort of knobbly bone there between the spine and the neck. So those two triangles are connected at that bone. So if you place your mind there and let the mind just kind of rest there, then a lot of the tension that's around the shoulders and the neck will release by themselves. Really excellent advice I got from one of my teachers. And then in addition to that, if that's not working, and again, if it's so distracting that you can't do the rest of your practice, rest there for a while. And then this exercise where you roll the shoulders, it's better to see from the side. So this one's going back, see? Back and down. And this one on the other side is going forward and up, see? So my chest is staying here, but my shoulders, like bicycle pedals, are rolling. Now, to show you what that looks like actually in meditation. So when you're actually in meditation, you don't want to do it that fast and that vigorously. So I don't even know if you're going to be able to see this on camera. Maybe you will. But so if I was in concentration and the pain in my shoulders or neck was becoming too much, I may adjust using that technique I might use that technique, but I'll adjust at this level of subtlety. So if you need to zoom in or whatever, you can, or I don't know if you can do that on live or not. So I'm not sure if that was visible on camera, but that was forward and then backwards. So it ends up being, you know, if this is the normal shoulder circle, the one when you're in concentration is here, right? And it's very small. And then you can do that just a couple of rotations, very slow, very small rotations in the shoulders. And that will sort of, because your shoulders have been locked, and that's where most of your tension is that you feel here in the back of the neck, is actually your shoulders being like this. It's not actually your head being too far forward, or usually it's the shoulders. So just the simple act of telling your mind that you're going to make these small rotations like this, your shoulders release the tension to be able to do the motions, you see? Okay. So broadly speaking, that's how you can stay with, 70, 80%, 90% of your mind in concentration, but still fix something that's going on with the body. It's also good if you want to learn salsa. Okay. Are you able to increase the volume? Sorry, I'm just not speaking very loud, and I turned my head. In any case, as I said, small circles, small circles. I think you guys got all the instructions. I usually repeat myself, so it should have all come through. Okay, well, Nat, Sam, John, Cleric, who will remain anonymous. I don't know who else is in the stream, but whoever's here, if you're passing through at this time, please hit the like button so that other people can find this later and that YouTube thinks this is something that is worth people seeing. Also, as I say at this point in the stream, if you'd like to study much more deeply, much more hardcore, go to the school link below. That's how at this time I'm funding my ability to be able to teach these things to everyone every day. So drop into that school course if you haven't already. And that's where I'm going to park my book, which will have a huge amount of extra information in it. Let's see. God all over, gentle energy, pulsing with that. Oh, doing the shoulders. Yeah, this placing the mind in this area is really helps release a lot of junk. It's very helpful. Okay, well, I think for today, this is where we will draw it to a close. But as usual, thank you all so much for being here. And we shall pick it up tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Hope to see you again soon.